Now, a Jimmy Mathis exclusive, The Stone Zone, featuring Roger Stone, veteran of 30 years in politics and 9 presidential campaigns, including Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump. Here is Jimmy Mathis on WBAL News Radio 1090 and the WBAL app.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
That really is the story of the week. Roger Stone, former Donald Trump top advisor, joins the program right now for the Stone Zone every Sunday at 9 a.m. This story kind of got put on the back burner, Roger, because of the obviously the police shootings Thursday. But were you surprised at all when that came down from James Comey?
No, not at all. If you look at it historically, James Comey has a lifetime career of covering up for the Clintons. He covered up for them in the Sandy Berger affair. Again, the inappropriate use of federal documents. He covered up for them in the Mark Rich pardon affair. That's where the Clintons took huge contributions to the Clinton Foundation in return for a pardon for the international fugitive criminal financier Mark Rich, whose wife was involved with Bill Clinton. So I'm not shocked at all. It is kind of almost tragic that this news got wiped off the front pages by the horrific events in Dallas. But what I have seen in polling just in the last 2 days is a substantial downdraft for Hillary Clinton. Actually, Donald Trump made very substantial progress moving this race back pretty close to a dead heat in 6 statewide polls in the 10 swing states, among the 10 swing states that I've been monitoring very quickly. So it still had a negative effect on her campaign.
Does Bernie Sanders run as a third-party candidate or independent?
No, I don't think so. I think the fix is in. I think his supporters rightfully are going to be very, very disappointed. Who knew? Bernie turns out to be just another politician. I think he's going to endorse the Democratic ticket. He's going to say something ridiculous about the platform. By the way, the 1972 Republican National Platform, go back and look at it. It says, don't worry, Richard Nixon will never, never go to China.
Well, it seems like Bernie Sanders was...
Platforms are meaningless, and he knows it.
Right. Well, look, he was hanging in there trying to find out what was going to be the recommendations or lack thereof from the FBI. And, we weren't sure if we would have an answer to that moving into the convention. I think he was trying to hang in there, to find out if possibly the Democratic nominee could be under federal indictment. So you think he just endorses Hillary Clinton and goes by the wayside right now?
Yeah, I just think he rolls over, which is going to disillusion a large number of his supporters. I have seen, again, sophisticated polling that shows that up to a third of his voters could see themselves voting for Donald Trump because of their affinity for Trump's position on trade, on war, and the fact that both Trump and Sanders are, anti-establishment figures.
And we're a week away right now from the convention in Cleveland. There's been a lot of questions out there with security being beefed up and what would happen as far as protests go. Let me back out of that for a second. Do you see any possibility right now at this point in the game where we are right now of them trying to strip Donald Trump of the nomination?
There's clearly some monkey business going on among the bitter ender Ted Cruz types in the Rules Committee of the Republican National Convention. I spoke yesterday to Donald Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, an incredibly able fellow, an old friend of mine, former business partner of mine, in fact. And I really think the Trump people have this nailed down very tightly. Could you have some kind of minority report? Yeah, and that would get about 2 seconds coverage in the media. But Donald Trump is going to be the nominee, and he is going to remake the Republican Party in his old image. The Country Club Party is done. This is going back to being the party of Main Street. This is going to be a working people's party once again, like it was under Reagan.
But you look right now, the way the rules are structured, Donald Trump, I'm looking at this from a process standpoint, doesn't really have any bound delegates, and the party has turned on him. You look at from Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan to Priebus to, I could go on and on. Larry Hogan here in Maryland has come out and said not only would he not vote for Donald Trump, but he's basically protesting the entire convention. I guess my question is, if they were to try to slip somebody in there, is that possible? Which, if you look at the rules, unless I'm completely off point on this, that's definitely a possibility. Who could that person be, or is this just so far out there, forget about it and move on?
On the contrary, the state rules, which govern the delegation of each state, very clearly bind the delegates to Donald Trump, because democracy matters, because in the process, how the voters have voted in caucuses and primaries does bind the delegates. Now,
I don't mean to cut you off, Roger, but I just want to be clear about this because I've talked about this in the past. So I just want to make sure that I'm correct. The rules from the convention, as the Supreme Court has ruled on in the past, don't the Republican rules supersede state law at the end of the day when you cut through all the semantics of it?
Yeah, state and federal law have no impact whatsoever. The convention is a private organization, so they're not governed by state or federal rules. They're governed by their own rules. The rules, as they're currently constituted, get passed down from convention to convention. So the permanent committee on rules of the Republican National Committee will make a recommendation, a set of rules that they will pass to the temporary committee on rules, which constitutes two people from each state, and they will pass the final rules for the convention. Then that set of rules goes to the convention for approval first, and then once approved, the convention operates under those rules.
So based on that, there are, because I'm just trying to, just have an honest conversation. So based on that, there are no actual bound delegates to Donald Trump at this point. I mean, people can vote their conscience, even though that may be contradictory to state law.
No, incorrect. They're bound by the state party rules. The National Party Convention respects the state party rules. So, for example, in California or Texas, delegates are bound by the outcome of the primary. There's very little chance that the temporary committee on rules are going to change the rules in a way to free delegates to vote the way they want. It's a fantasy. I've read it. There's a Republican National Committeeman, I think he's from North Dakota. Jimmy, have you ever been to North Dakota?
I have not been to North Dakota.
This guy's all wet. He doesn't know what he's talking about, saying, well, the unit rule, is not allowed. This has nothing to do with the unit rule. Mm-hmm. The unit rule is a rule under which a majority of the delegation can vote and therefore bind the entire delegation.
But the key word that you used was...
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this because I don't want to be giving false information. The key word that you used there was normally they respect the wishes of. But as far as actual bound delegates, party rules supersede state law. So when you're reading these reports that there are no, we're just talking from a legality standpoint right now, and you look at as crazy as this whole process has been, just when you look, if the convention rules supersede state law, yes, in the past, normally the delegates respect the wishes of the voters in the primary season, but they do have freedom. Again, this may be very unorthodox, but they do have the freedom to vote their will and conscience.
No, they have the freedom to try to change the rules to do so.
Okay.
I would argue that the delegates are currently bound. You could try to pass a rule in the Temporary Rules Committee prior to the convention that unbinds everybody. Then that rule would have to go to the full convention for a vote, and if approved, the voters would be unbound.
Okay.
I think that has a zero chance of possibility.
Do you, we're a week away from the convention. Do you see any possibility of there being unrest going on in Cleveland, or is that just the media making a bunch of...
I think you can almost count on it. Okay. As you know, the Citizens for Trump, with whom I am involved, went to the federal courts to overturn the free speech restrictions which the city of Cleveland had handed down, changing, for example, the security perimeter, which was 4 miles out from the convention center, to only 1 mile, far more reasonable. And they were ultimately forced to give us a permit for a rally that will be at at 11 o'clock on Monday the 18th, a pro-Trump rally. There was also a plan to put all of the demonstrators, Black Lives Matter, Move On, Citizens for Trump, Bikers for Trump, Dentists for Trump, Fishermen for Trump, Lawyers for Trump, Women for Trump, Children for Trump, all in one kind of fenced-in area.
Right.
That was a tinderbox. That was a guaranteed conflagration. Now I think that they have a better plan, but it's in the interests of the left to have violence. They will try to provoke violence and then blame that violence on Trump. You see, it's like, see what Trump did? Well, Trump's not doing any of it. The most important message for Trump supporters going to the convention, and I'm packing my bags right now, is you got to turn the other cheek. You've got to ignore the provocations. Violence only serves those who would defeat Trump.
And the convention is 1 week from now. Talking to Roger Stone, former Donald Trump top advisor, also author of The Clintons' War on Women, also Jeb and the Bush Crime Family. Roger, I'll see you in Cleveland. Have a good week, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Larry Hogan. He came this close to being vice president. Oh, well.
I disagree with the governor on this one. I've been out. I've called a lot of flack for it. I like Governor Hogan. I know him personally. We go back a ways, but I respectfully disagree with him on this one.
Look, I worked in his father's campaigns. I like Larry Hogan. I think he's made an enormous mistake. Many thanks, Jimmy. See you in Cleveland.
Thank you, Roger. See you in Cleveland. 9:17. You're listening to the Jimmy Mathis Show on WBL News Radio 1090.